Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Elden Ring walkthrough. So before we get started here, I wanted to turn in the bell bearing that we got last time from the bell bearing hunter. Anytime you get a bell bearing, you can bring it over to the Twin Maiden Husks, choose offer bell bearing, give them whichever one you want. There's never going to be any reason to withhold any of these, so just when you have them, go ahead and trade them in, and then it's going to expand their inventory and let you buy whatever the corresponding bell bearing unlocks. A lot of those are going to come from like dead NPCs. If that NPC was selling something, then trade in their bell bearing and you can move their merchant inventory over to this merchant. I think all this one really gave us is these bones, but you can use those to make arrows, which is kind of nice. But that's really all I have to say about that for now. We'll get a ton more of those as the game goes on. And what we are going to do today is take on Margit the Fell Omen, first like real big boss fight of the game. But before we do that, there is a couple things I wanted to show you. So let's go over to Bestial Sanctum. I think it's Bestial, but I just say Beast because, like, you know, look at him. But let's go outside. So, once again, this is Dragonbarrow, very late game area. We're not really gonna mess around with this very seriously for a long time, but there's no harm in grabbing some items over here. So we can get that golden seed. There's gonna be a grace right up ahead, but if you kind of veer off to the right here, it's gonna be kind of an absolute tank of a teardrop scarab, but if you manage to kill him, it's going to give us a somber smithing stone 9, which is not terribly useful to us at this point in the game because, you know, you have to have a +8 weapon before you have any use for the +9 material. But what that's going to do is allow us to kind of like just slingshot our way through a few of the last few upgrade tiers, because we're also going to get a Somber Smithing Stone 8 in Caelid, which, I don't know, this isn't, like, technically is sort of Caelid, technically not. Caelid's just this area just to the south of it, which we've already, like, gotten into just slightly over here. But we'll get a Somber Smithing Stone 8 from that. We're going to avoid this bridge dragon, by the way. Just follow what I'm doing. And then we get a +7 in, like, I want to say Altus Plateau, so, you know, we can just knock out the +7, +8, +9 upgrades right in a row, basically, by the time we get to Altus Plateau, so you're kind of just chilling with a nearly maxed out weapon, like, halfway through the game, which is pretty cool. Now, there's all these little traps on the ground that inflict poison. It's not going well so far, but I would recommend not stepping on all of them. You could just go around them, it turns out. Didn't think of that. If you come here at night, this bridge is going to have a Knight's Cavalry on it. Now, I did originally plan to show you how to, like, cheese this boss. You could have gotten him to, you used to be able to, like, jump up on this branch here, and then if you remember when we fought all the Knight's Cavalry last episode, like, they really like to leap when they attack, so you could sort of just bait him into missing you if you're up on the branch and jump off this bridge. He doesn't like to do that anymore, though. I do know that you can lure him over to all those poison traps, and that is like a way to cheese him, but it's not particularly quick, and I don't really want to mess with it. Like, it's, you know, you can get it to work, but it's not nearly as efficient as getting him to jump off the edge. So if you want to mess with that, go ahead and try, but I'm not doing it in this video. Cash in their golden seeds there. And then from this grace, we can go down here, and this is like a really nice rune farm for early game. In all honesty, I probably could have and should have showed you this a couple episodes ago, but the way it works is you come down here, and this like middle sort of, I don't know how to really describe it, but this rock right in front of us, this edge of the cliff, once you approach that, a boulder is going to appear behind us, and it's going to charge after us, so you just dash out of the way and it's going to go off the edge, and it counts as a living thing, so it gives us 1,952 runes, which is quite a bit considering how little effort that took to kill it. And then you can just warp or run back up here to this grace. I've done it both ways. You can kind of dial in the timing so that I think it's probably faster to warp, but I guess it's going to depend on your hardware. And the other thing that you want to be careful of is that when you come down here, it takes a second for it to like actually die, and for you to get the runes. And I know there's also like a weird thing where like sometimes like people have had difficulty. This is like going way back to like when the game was first released. I don't know if this is even a thing anymore, but I remember like people would say like, oh, you have to like watch it go off the edge to get the runes. That's definitely not true, but you definitely do have to wait a second. So if you like spawn it in, dash, and like super quickly warp back to this grace, you might do it too quickly to actually get the rune. So play with the timing, figure out what works for you. Like I said, probably could have showed you that a little bit earlier, but at the same time, I think really only like the last 2 episodes were episodes that we were fighting anything that was like particularly challenging compared to, you know, everything else in the sort of starting area, Limgrave and Weeping Peninsula. So I'm willing to bet you probably haven't encountered too much, except for the things that I specifically called out as things that you could just come back to later when you're stronger, that you really felt like you needed to be a higher level for. So that's there if you want it. And we are also going to another like one-time use rune farm, but it gets us a ton of runes. And then if you stand in the Spirit Spring and aim towards that balcony, kinda maybe veer a little bit more left towards this roof, and you can kind of slide down to get into this building here. If we go up to the top, up the elevator all the way to the top, we can get another memory stone here. And there we go. So as I'm just kind of making my way towards the thing that we're aiming for right now, I will explain what we're doing here. So there is a big dragon that we're about to kill that's pretty free to kill. I mean, it's not like, it doesn't fight back, and it gives you a ton of runes. So this might be like slightly controversial choice, I guess, but personally I feel like in Elden Ring, especially early on, your levels don't really contribute to your power all that much. Like we're still kind of at the point where I feel like we're leveling up to meet like minimum requirements for weapons that we want to hold, and we're not like high enough level yet that we're gonna have so much health that like nothing can kill us. Most of your power really comes from upgrading your weapons still, I feel like. So doing something like this, it's gonna let us level up like, I don't know, 10 times, a dozen times or so. It really just like, I don't know, if you feel like you're too strong from doing this, then you can always wait however long you want to wait to do it. There's an Erd Tree avatar in front of this tree here, so we want to steer clear of that. But yeah, there's a big boss fight coming up, and the thing is with any rune farm really, is the longer you wait, the less effective it's going to be. So like we're gonna get around 100,000 runes from this, which is a ton for the level that we're at right now. But if we like wait a bit in the game, you know, 100,000 runes pretty quickly is only gonna translate to like 2-3 levels or something. It's not really a lot. So the earlier we do it, the more levels we can get out of those runes. So again, if, you know, it's just going to come down to whether or not you feel like being quote unquote over leveled is going to diminish your experience in the game. But all I'm really trying to get at right now is that I genuinely don't think there's any combination of levels that you could use these runes on right now that would get you like noticeably stronger. Like, this is just gonna give you a little more health, stamina, let you use that spell that you've been slowly getting the intelligence or faith levels for or whatever. Let you use a heavy weapon that you've only been able to use with 2 hands so far. Something like that. Like, it's not going to make you significantly stronger, I don't think. Like, we don't have access to many super overpowered weapons right now, and we don't have access to very many smithing stones yet, so like chances are this is just not going to make you that strong. Alright, rant over. Now what we want is this, we want something that does bleed damage. This dragon right here, this it looks like a giant corpse, but that's the dragon in front of us. It has a massive health bar. The way blood loss, the status effect works in this game is it's a percentage based damage thing, so every time you proc it, it's going to take off a percent of whatever health bar you're attacking. So the bigger the health bar, that percent is going to translate to much more health, so, or much more damage, right? So we want something percentage based for this, otherwise you're going to be here all day. By this point in the game, you have several options. The Uchi Katana I've been using, whether you started with it or not, or you picked it up in the catacombs, does have 45 blood loss on it. We have the Reduvia, has 30 blood loss, plus a weapon art that does blood buildup as well. What I personally like to use is the flail. We have the regular flail and the Knight Rider's flail. The flail takes 10 strength and 18 dexterity. It does 50 blood loss buildup, which is just slightly more than the Uchi Katana, but the cool thing about it is that you can use its special attack, which is just like this spin thing, and you're going to hit every time that thing spins, so it builds it up a lot faster. So that's what I'm going to go with. Now, if you don't have the dexterity for these things, because to be fair, basically all these blood loss inflicting weapons do require a little bit of dexterity. I didn't realize this did blood loss buildup. I've never used it before. I guess it makes sense because it comes from the imps, but those are super low requirements, so I guess if you want to go farm the imps to try to get this 9 strength, 14 dexterity for 14 or for 50 blood loss buildup, that's pretty nice. But if you are short a few of these levels, here's what options you have. So for one, we got from the boss in the Everjail a couple episodes ago, the Radagon Scar Seal, which is going to add 3 levels to 4 of your stats, 2 of which are strength and dexterity. So if you're 3 levels shy of something that has a dexterity requirement, then this might be the move. But conveniently, inside here, I did tell you that there was a upgraded version of that later in the game, and we are later in the game now. So we can run in here and grab that also. I would recommend just running, once again, this is a very late game area, so these things are going to hurt a lot, but to come up here and we can actually get the Dectus Medallion rights. I will explain in a bit what that does. Let's focus on the task at hand first. Drop down here where this ladder is. There's going to be a rat around the corner to the left, so watch out for him jumping out. Grab the golden rune 12, and then we turn around and make this diagonal jump. Going to be a much bigger rat. Just ignore him. Drop down. Grab this golden beam of light, Radagon Source Seal, and then didn't feel good. Didn't feel good at all. Maybe spend your runes if you have enough that you don't want to lose them before you go in here, because that's a little sketchy there where you go pick up the item. Back outside, and we are good to go. Alright, so more yapping. We now have Radagon's Scar Seal and Source Seal, so this is the exact same thing, but better. Raises attributes, but also increases damage taken. Greatly raises attributes, but also increases damage taken. So it's going to do the exact same thing, except instead of 3 levels, you get 5 levels in each of those stats. So if you are 5 or less stat or levels shy of wielding the flail with dexterity or strength, whatever your stats are, +5 to strength and dexterity. Hopefully that can get you high enough stats to use at least one of these bleed inducing weapons. Now I also want to talk about this item in general. This is kind of a controversial item because it's considered by some people to be sort of a noob trap, and I do feel like there is some merit to that, but it's, you know, there's more nuance to it than that. So in exchange for +5 to each of those stats, essentially you get 20 free levels out of this item, right? In exchange for that, you take 15% more damage, which early game, 20 levels is a lot. Like for me, I'm level 33 right now, so this, like, I would have to be level 53 to have the same stats as this would give me if I have it equipped. Like, it's almost doubling my level. It's very, very good early in the game. And 15% more damage taken is a lot, but it's more of a problem if the enemy is hitting super, super hard. And most of the things early in the game don't hit that hard. Later in the game, almost every time you get hit is going to just demolish your health bar. So late game, would not recommend this item whatsoever. The problem is, for a new player, it's kind of hard to figure out, like, you know, you might have a tough time gauging how good 20 levels is. Like, on paper, 20 free levels will always sound like a really good deal. And to be fair, it kind of is. But you have to realize when the 15% extra damage that you're taking is doing more harm than the good of those 20 free levels, right? So all I can really say, like, you're gonna have to figure this out for yourself and decide, like, how much mileage you're getting out of these levels. Like, for instance, if you're not using strength and dexterity at all, don't use this. There's another version of it that does the same thing, except it increases your, like, magic stats. So then, like, that's a different story. But, you know, I would say in general, if you have the enough runes and can level up enough times to get your stats to where you want them to be, like, you can hold all of the, or wield all of the weapons that you want to wield, and you have enough health and endurance or stamina and equip load and all that. Like, if you can meet all your minimum requirements without this thing, I would recommend not using it, probably, just because you get hit super hard, right? Like, it's, but at the same time, if you're not getting hit a lot, then the 15% extra damage you take doesn't really matter. So, like, it's a very subjective, preference-based thing. You're gonna have to figure it out for yourself, but I just want to throw that out there, that this is an option that you have, and it might interest you. Anyways, on to the task at hand. The way that this works, this is Elder Dragon Grayoll, and there are going to be like 5 other dragons around here. I think it's about to roar. And they all have a shared health bar. So you can kill all of the extra, like, regular sized dragons that will fight back around here, and Greyoll will die. Or you can kill Greyoll and all of the other dragons will die. All of them are going, you can kind of see them moving now. All of them are going to give us runes. But you can see, or maybe hear, that Greyoll just roared, and you can see that we've been debuffed under my stamina bar as well. So that's what that did. But if I go ahead and equip the flail, that's not the flail, and then also go down to my inventory, we should have at least 1 gold pickled foulfoot by now. If you don't have it, the one off the top of my head that we picked up, if you go to Waypoint Ruins and run a little bit north, up on the edge of this little cliff here is where I heard dragons moving. It sketched me out. There's like 3 just little peasant dudes sitting here next to it. That's where you can get it. So I would go there. And what that's going to do is it's going to increase our rune acquisition by 30% for 3 minutes. So what you want to do is kind of walk into Greyoll's tail here, do the spin attack, or, you know, whatever your bleed thing is. You can even take a normal weapon and put, like, the Ash of War Bloody Slash that we got a while back. That could work too. But yeah, you want to just do this, and you can pay attention in the top left corner to Greyoll's health bar. You'll see every once in a while we get a bleed proc, and it's just going to do a massive, massive chunk of like 13,000 damage. And since we have 3 minutes on this, it's really not like, the timing is not super important. Just pop it once you are certain that it will die in the next couple of minutes. You know, don't wait too long and accidentally kill the dragon, obviously, but get a feel for how fast you're building up blood loss on your weapon before you pop the gold foot. And also be aware before you, like, you know, if you're just like a freak and like doing all of the math and like, okay, this lasts for 3 minutes and according to my calculations, I can kill this dragon in 2 minutes and 57 seconds. Be aware that every time you proc a blood loss or any status effect in the game for that matter, it's going to take more hits to proc it a second time. The enemy like builds up a passive resistance to it, so you can't just like keep chain triggering status effects super quickly back to back to back. So I usually let the dragon get down to like around a quarter health or so. Also be aware that if you just like somehow, you know, you can't reach enough, or you can't reach the stats required to use any kind of bleed weapon, for one, you can always just come back later, like I said earlier, but you can still inflict blood loss. I'm gonna go ahead and pop that, even if you don't meet the minimum requirements, but it will take a lot longer, like a lot longer. The actual blood loss proc itself will do just as much damage as it normally would, but the buildup is hindered by not having the appropriate stats, so just be aware of that. Getting close here. One more bleed should do it. And if you are using like a blood-based Ash of War as your main source of bleed buildup, we're not being attacked right now, so like you could temporarily reallocate your flasks to all cerulean to keep up with the FP cost of that as well. I don't know if that would be enough, just because you can see like how much what's it called? How much, I'm blanking, how long it's taking to do all this bleed. You can see the big dragon dies and the small dragons die, and we get like 2 waves of runes, a whole lot. 106,000 we're at. I had some to begin with, but just shy of 100,000 we get from all that. We get 5 dragon hearts. I would recommend saving 3 of those. We're eventually going to get enough if you follow along with the guide and fully clear the game with me, but I would recommend saving 3 of those to cash in for Greyoll's unique dragon communion incantation. I think it's just called Greyoll's Roar. It's a roar that debuffs people just like Greyoll did to us, and it's one of the legendary incantations you'll need for that achievement, so that's why I would recommend getting it. Since the dragons are dead, we can also just freely run over here and climb this big rock thing. Get a smithing stone 8, stone sword key, smithing stone 7, and another smithing stone 7. And that's going to do it for this area. So we have a whole lot of runes to spend. And let's go back to Stormhill Shack. Now we're going to get, I think, like, I'm trying to remember, a little over 10,000 runes, I believe, from the next boss. So either now when you have all these runes, or after the boss. Since we're wrapping up Limgrave pretty much in this episode, I would recommend going around wherever you see merchants, not that one I guess, that's Brunel, but the nomadic merchants, and picking up all of the cookbooks and cracked pots and stone sword keys, like whatever you want from them, just so you don't forget about it. and you know, just say that you have them. After we kill the boss, I'll do like a little rundown of, I'll show you how many we're supposed to have, because I should have picked up all of that stuff by now on my travels, but maybe you didn't have the runes to follow along with me at every step of the way, so I'll show you in a bit what we should have for that if you want to double check to make sure you're up to speed. And I'm just gonna level up a few times here. And that's yeah, we got 11 levels out of that, so it's just, you know, it's nice, but it's really not gonna like make or break the experience, I don't think, so I really would not worry too much about being over leveled. Just gonna kind of ignore those guys for right now. Come up here to the left of the path, and we'll go for this teardrop scarab, I guess. The Ash of War wild strikes, and there's a bunch of enemies like hidden in these bushes over here. That one I believe is the one with the horn. Maybe? Yes, he is. If you don't want to fight these guys, you actually don't have to. I'm just gonna run ahead, in fact. I would recommend taking that side path through the woods though, so you don't get shot down by that ballista there. And behind them, we can get this grace. There we go. That was close. Alright, so Margit. This boss is he can be kind of hard. I think the preparations that we've made, if you've been following along with everything, shouldn't be too bad. I'm gonna go ahead and equip his shackle to my main hotbar here temporarily, and then we'll put it back onto the pouch later. I also am probably not going to be getting too many crits, so I'm going to swap the talisman I have right now for something else. Maybe could honestly go with this. Yeah, it's pretty long combos, so I think you can't really hurt with one of the stamina things or even a little extra health, you know? I'm probably going to go with raised stamina recovery speed, why not? So, you have a NPC summon right here, Sorcerer Rajer. You can take him if you want. I would say for this boss, there are a couple of general strategies that I can recommend. Rajer, in all likelihood, is going to die like halfway through the fight. You know, mileage is going to vary. Maybe Margit just doesn't care about him in your world and he survives a long time, but sometimes Margit also just cares a lot about him being there and just lays into him relentlessly, so Rajer doesn't really last that long. So I would say if you're going for a more aggressive playstyle and you want to prioritize like staggering the boss, summon Rajer, summon something that attacks pretty fast Spirit Ash wise, like the wolves, or you know, maybe you even go with Engval or Lutel, and just like go crazy on the boss, go absolute goblin mode. All right, just go for as many jumping heavy attacks, charged heavy attacks, just completely overwhelm the boss and try to get as many staggers as you can and get those crits. That's gonna work pretty well, honestly. Or you can play the long game, in which case I would actually recommend something like the jellyfish, because that one, if you recall, builds up poison. So once that poison procs, it's just going to continuously be draining Margit's health bar slowly over time, but over the course of an entire poison status effect cycle, it's going to do a ton of damage. And the jellyfish doesn't have to survive past actually proccing the poison. Like, it'll keep ticking until it fades away. If the jellyfish survives for a really long time, maybe it can proc it the second time, but like, all you need is for the jellyfish to survive long enough to hit Margit like a couple of times to actually proc the poison. And the jellyfish is pretty tanky too, so that works as well. If you do go with that route, I would not recommend summoning Roger or anyone else, because that's just going to give Margit more health, which is going to offset how effective the poison is. Since you're playing the long game, playing for time with the poison strat, you don't want Margit to have extra health, because then it's just going to take more time, right? TLDR is Jellyfish for a passive playstyle, or Wolves and Roger for an aggressive playstyle. The other thing to make note of is the Margit Shackle. It's a 2-phase boss fight, similar to other things we fought with multiple phases so far. Around 60% health, like just over half, is when the phase transition is usually going to occur. In phase 1, so just anything before he hits around 60% health, you can use Margit Shackle twice, and it's going to completely stun and immobilize Margit for a few seconds, and you can just lay into him. In phase 2, you cannot use the shackle whatsoever. It doesn't matter if you didn't use it at all in phase 1, you just can't use it. So I would just say use this both times super early, and just, you know, you can probably get the fight straight into phase 2, honestly, if you're properly aggressive. You can also parry Margit. Let me put on another shield. Actually, I'm probably not even going to block him at all, so just take that off. But when you parry him, you have to parry him twice before it'll unlock the crit. I'll try to show you that, but it's not my preferred method, because Margit has really long combos, so if you get hit by the beginning of it, a good chance you're getting locked in them, which is not good. And he also loves to delay some of his attacks, so like parrying him is kind of a challenge sometimes. He also has that cane in his hand that you can see, staff thing, whatever. That's the only thing that you can parry throughout the fight. I guess probably not until phase 2. Definitely not until phase 2. He's only going to use the staff, but once he hits phase 2, he'll have these offhand holy magic weapons that he can summon, and he has combos where he like uses the holy weapon and the staff in tandem. You can only parry the staff part, and that's like, you know, that's pretty ballsy to go for that, I would say, while he's like swinging 2 weapons at the same time when you can only parry one. So I would say try to like only parry him when he's just swinging the staff, but I'm going to try to get a parry here, just to demonstrate. It's really not going well. There's 1 parry. There's 2 parries. So, as you can see, it can be done. Margit Shackle, that's what that looks like. Probably have like 5 seconds or so before he gets back up. And you can just absolutely wail on him. And it is going to stun him. Well, not if he's in the air. Oh, he's in. Maybe it will do it if he's in the air, actually. He switched to phase 2. That was the issue. I did too much damage too fast. That's kind of funny. Let me heal up now. Alright, so as far as like actually fighting him, that offhand weapon is a problem. Sometimes he'll summon the hammer, and that's like super telegraphed, and that's what we like. But when he's summoning the small things like the straight sword or those daggers, that's not good. But hammer, as you can see, very telegraphed. But he does these combo attacks like you just saw there, where he sort of swings the hammer and the staff together. And he has so many mix-ups, like it's actually impossible to describe. Like, he can chain attacks, like basically anything in his arsenal he can chain into anything else, and he can do all these delayed swings. So I like to keep kind of a medium distance here and only go into attack off of the attacks that I recognize. Like that one, very big wind up. I understand what he's about to do. He's going to charge at me with his staff. Anything with the hammer is going to be a big slow jump, basically. When you're at distance and try to heal, he's pretty much always going to try to throw his daggers at you, but just don't get aggressive. Like, find an attack that you feel comfortable dodging, like that hammer jump. That's like my bread and butter for this fight. That's what I'm just looking for. I could literally sit here and just dance with him all day, and just wait for that hammer attack. Because when you go in any closer, he does those super fast combos like you just saw, and it's just easy to get caught up and take a bunch of damage that you really don't need to be taking. Another big wind up. Let him do that, and we get an attack, maybe two, if you're overly ambitious like I am. But like, you know, you don't want to get caught in what he just did. Like, that's just like sitting inside of a blender. So all these attacks he's mixing up right now, like he's just going in. So, play passively. Find something that's easy to dodge, and take advantage of that. Hit him once after the hammer, and we get out. It's hard to really like be more specific with like how to dodge certain attacks, because depending on what he decides to combo and chain together, it's really going to affect how you're going to go about dodging things. Like, it's really hard not to trade damage in this fight, which is why I recommend those strats that I highlighted originally, where you just play hyper aggressively right out of the gate and just try to keep him locked down with staggers, with the shackle, or if you know the fight's going to drag on for a while, you go with the jellyfish, so that even if you like cannot find an attack window, an opening to actually do damage, at least your jellyfish's poison is still like slowly whittling down his health bar. So that is Margit the Fell Omen. We get another talisman pouch slot, so that's awesome. Can now equip 2 talismans. We can throw that back on. And I think that's pretty much it. That's like, we're done. We'll be back, I guess, technically later, but only in passing. We're pretty much done with Limgrave and Weeping Peninsula. So once again, I would say go back, take your runes, and buy whatever you haven't bought yet from any of the merchants around those 2 zones, Limgrave and Weeping Peninsula. Throw the shackle back in my pouch real quick. And if I open my inventory, go to key items, this is what we're working with so far. Just open your inventory and see what you're missing as far as these crystal tears here. We've got those 7. We just got the talisman pouch from Margit. We should have 3 memory stones if you bought the one from the Twin Maiden Husks. I'm not casting on this character at all, at least not yet, so I didn't buy that one, but we found 2 in Puzzle Towers, and could have a 3rd one if you bought that. We should have 6 cracked pots. I've got 3 spare stone sword keys right now. Got these Dectus medallions left and right. And then as far as cookbooks, I'm just gonna back out of this actually and throw the graphics I made on screen, because I feel like that's probably a little bit easier to see since all of the cookbooks look the same. White numbers are going to be the ones that we have unlocked. The grayed out ones we have not found yet. But that's about it. So I was just sitting here working on editing this video, and something popped into my head. Since we're kind of finishing up this whole region of the game, and I'm going over the key items that we've gotten from this region, I figured I would just recap the quest lines too. Maybe this will help you guys just to stay up to date with all of the quests in the game. It's going to get harder and harder to follow throughout the game, but we'll try it for right now. So as far as quest lines that we have started and accomplished anything on in Liurnia and Weeping Peninsula, starting off we got Iron Fist Alexander. This is just like an alphabetical order of how I have these like saved on my computer, not necessarily the order that we encountered them in, but we've covered them all in the video, so don't worry about that. So for Iron Fist Alexander, all we've done is we found him in Storm Hill, right over about here next to Saints Bridge, and we freed him and spoke to him. That's all that there is for that right now. Next we have Bernal, which all we've really done is speak to him at War Master Shack, which is an optional step. He's just a merchant right now, so I mean, I'm labeling that as part of his quest line because it's dialogue and all that, but that's all we've done with Bernal. Next is Blythe. So we've done a few things with Blythe. For one, we go over to Mistwood Ruins and we hear the howling sound. After you hear the howling sound, you can go back over here to Church of LA, talk to Merchant Kale, mention that you heard the howling sound, and he's going to give you the finger snap gesture, at which point you can go back to Mistwood Ruins, use the finger snap gesture. It's going to make Blythe jump down. You can talk to him and he tells you to help him defeat Darweel. I don't, who cares how you say it, but the boss over here at the Forlorn Hound Everjail, we help him, and then we speak to Blythe after that. We get that somber smithing stone too, I believe it was, and then he tells us if we bump into his buddy EG to mention that we know him. So EG's way up here in Liurnia, so we haven't done that yet. Next we have Bach. Okay, so for Bach, we find him in Limgrave, over just sort of like southeast of Gatefront Ruins, one of the first areas we cleared in the game. He's out here in this field somewhere. He's like disguised as a tree, so you like roll into the tree or whatever, speak to him, and then he's going to move over here to Coastal Cave. You can talk to him there. He's not looking so good. Defeat the bosses in that cave, the demi-human chiefs, and they're going to give you Bach's sewing tools. Return to him at the entrance of the cave, and you can give him the sewing tools. That's where we're at with that right now. Next, we have... Sorry, I opened a lot of files on my computer, all of these quest tracker things to read them, so it's going kind of slow. Brother Corin. So all we've done with Brother Corin is speak to him at Round Table Hold. Pretty easy. Sorceress Selin. We met her at Waypoint Ruins over here, and all we've done is talk to her, agree to study sorcery under her. Right now, if you want to, if you're running a magic build, you can bring her some scrolls and buy sorceries from her. But that's all we've done with her so far. D Hunter of the Dead. So we found him in Stormhill over here, just up the path slightly from Summonwater Village. We spoke to him there, and then once you clear out Summonwater Village, kill that Tibia Mariner boss in there, then he should teleport over to this corner of Summonwater Village, and we can speak to him again there. If not, you can eventually just find him back at Round Table Hold. Whichever way you do that, though, he's going to mark the map for us over here near the Third Church of America. It's gone now since we've used it, but there was a way gate that we took that teleports us up to Bestial Sanctum. We talk to Garonk, we hand in some death roots, and then after we meet Garonk, you can talk to D back at Round Table Hold and get some more dialogue there. Next is Dialos. All we've done is speak to him at Round Table Hold. Ensha, the guy posted up outside of Gideon's office. Again, all we've done is speak to him at Round Table Hold. Fia, spoke to her Round Table Hold. She hugged us. It was weird. Gideon spoke to him at Round Table Hold. There's a trend here. Hayata. Okay, so this first step of Hayata's questline, you need to speak to Irina, who is down here, right by Bridge of Sacrifice at the beginning of Weeping Peninsula, and you accept her letter. She wants you to take her letter to Edgar, her father, over at Castle Morn. So you need to do that before you can do anything else with Hayata. And then we aren't really supposed to meet Hayata for a bit, but since in one of the first episodes while we were collecting things, we circumvented Stormvale Castle over here to the east of it. We actually met Hayata at Lake Facing Cliffs and spoke to her there. So that's as far as we are with that right now. And then also, in that same vein, while we were there at Lake Facing Cliffs right at the beginning of Liurnia, down to the west slightly is the Church of Erith, and there's an NPC sorcerer named Thops there, and we spoke to him. that's it for his quest line. So far, at least. And then Irina. So Irina, we've actually done most of her quest line. Once again, you can find her originally here right next to Bridge of Sacrifice. As soon as you cross that bridge to get to Weeping Peninsula, we speak to her. She wants us to bring a letter to her father, Edgar, at Castle Morn. So we go to Castle Morn. We clear out Castle Morn, most of it at least. And then Edgar's up on the roof. Speak to him. Give him the letter. He tells us that he can't leave until he has fulfilled his duty there. So then you go down, you kill the boss, the Leonine Misbegotten, the one that gives us the Game of Thrones sword. After that boss is dead, you return to Edgar. He says he can leave now, and then he does leave, and he goes back to Irina. So you go back over there, returning to Irina's original location, and you find that she is dead, and Edgar is there mourning her death. So that is it for Irina so far. Then we have Kenneth Height. So Kenneth Height we originally found in Mistwood, or north of Mistwood, kind of, I think it's this one maybe. One of these like big ruin bridge things. Spoke to him. He wants us to go clear out Fort Height. We do that, and then you can go back, speak to him again, and then pledge service to him, and then he'll go back to Fort Height, or he'll go to Fort Height for the first time. We go back to Fort Height for the second time, clear it out one more time, and then speak to him on the roof. That's where we're at right now with Kenneth Heights. Patches. So for Patches, we meet him over here in Murkwater Cave. Get to it kind of from the entrance of the mouth of the river is here by the lake. Go up it, Murkwater Cave. We fight him, we spare his life, reload the area, and then you can let him beat you for the extreme repentance gesture, and then you open his chest, and it's going to teleport you over the Mistwood ruins. You'll be trapped, rest at any grace, and then it'll reset that. Then you can return the Patches, talk to him again for the calm down gesture at any point in the middle there. Also opens up his wares for... He's a merchant, is what I'm trying to say. And you can get Margit Shackle from him, as well as a cookbook or two, I believe. So that's where we're at with Patches right now. Roderica we originally found over here in Stormhill Shack. Now her quest line's a little weird because we sort of skipped part of it, or auto-completed part of it. So she wants us to go find something called the Chrysalids Memento in Stormvale Castle. But if you pass Stormvale Castle straight to Liurnia, it'll auto-complete that step. So we didn't do that. We just came back after we went to Liurnia up here, talked to her again, and then she will leave Stormhill Shack and go back to Round Table Hold, and then you can kind of bounce between speaking to her and speaking to the blacksmith Master Hugh, and eventually he'll agree to train her, or look over her at least, and she'll become a spirit tuner. So just jumping back between speaking to Roderica and speaking to Master Hugh until both their dialogues are exhausted. Reload the area a couple times to be sure, and you should be good to go with Roderica. And finally, Bloody Finger Hunter Yura. So we met him originally near Seaside Ruins, under these ruins right here. There he is still. And then for the next step, up in this river where Patches was, where Murkwater Cave was, we get invaded by that NPC that was holding Reduvia, the like bleed dagger thing. Nereus. Kill Nereus. Yura should show up to help you if you wait long enough. And then afterwards you can speak to Yura up north of the river, or further north in the river, up here under these ruins. And then after that he should teleport back to his original location here. Then once you challenge the Dragon Grayoll, all this stuff is like optional, just cool dialogue from him, I guess. Once you challenge a Grayoll, then you can speak to Yura and he'll comment on you being stupid. But then you can summon Yura if you want over here somewhere for the Grayoll fight. Whether you summon him or not, after you defeat a Grayoll, you can speak to Yura again for some additional dialogue. He'll tell you about the Church of Dragon Communion if you haven't been to it already. But that's where we're at with that. So hopefully that brings you up to speed on all of the NPC quest lines and the items we got in Limgrave. But that's pretty much gonna do it. So I'm just gonna play the original outros of the video, and you know, I'm sure I handled it just great the first time. So I'm gonna trust my old self to outro this video. Thank you for watching. Next time we'll get on to our first proper legacy dungeon, Stormveil Castle. I really like Stormveil Castle. It's going to be a good time. I don't know how long it's going to take. Hopefully not too long, but we will see when we get to it. So, till then, have a good one.